We're just at the tail end of today. It was quite lovely to hear all the discourse around mathematics education. So this is the final session. We're almost there. This is panel number 2. The title of it is Influential Research in Undergraduate Mathematics Education. We have some heavy hitters for our last session today to get us motivated and inspired to continue on. So first we have Dr. Egan Chernoff from the College of Education, University of Saskatchewan, so Canadian, yay. Dr. Elise Lockwood, Department of Mathematics, Oregon State University. Amazing work that she's done in mathematics education. Dr. Jean-Francois Maheux from the Department of Department of Mathematics, Université de Québec, Montréal. Amazing work that he does in the philosophy of mathematics. And our superstar, Dr. Rina Zazkis from the Faculty of Education, Fraser University. At ICME in Australia, she was an education plenary lecturer. Amazing stuff. Go Canada. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a little bit how this particular session will unfold itself. So I'm not going to introduce each person. They will do that as they present. So each individual, each presenter will have 15 minutes to talk. They will briefly introduce themselves. Okay, and so they will be focusing on the sample of research that they have tackled in mathematical education preparation of undergraduate students or future teachers, and where possible to make connections to ongoing research for future directions in mathematics education. More specifically, they'll be talking about the journals they are connected to, so it'll be great to hear about that. And after, we will have a round of questions for us and hopefully fruitful discussion from the audience. So without further ado, if I can please pass the virtual mic, not physical one, unfortunately. Egan is joining us all the way from Japan.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm excited to be part of this panel. And I want to just kind of start a little bit about the table of contents. This is a brief sort of overview of what we're going to talk about today. And oddly, we're going to start talking about responses to an invitation. And I want to thank Amy and Kitty and Peter for this invitation. But I want to just kind of say that you always have to be careful when you start writing a letter. So here's an initial response to the invitation where I start explaining that it's for years now that I've realized just how influential my research in math education truly is, how others have finally picked up on what's been going on. And then I just sort of conclude this email with a rider with sort of explains my demands in order for me to attend. And then just before I was about to send the letter, I thought to myself, let's just do a quick double check here. Okay, so we have the Fields Institute, check. We got building capacity in the scholarship of math education, check. Influential research, check. I looked at the other panelists, check. I mean, I knew what was going on, but I thought, you know what, just double check that abstract before you send what you were going to send. And then I read the abstract and then I realized, whoops, do not send that email. You are not being invited because of your influential research in undergraduate mathematics education. So there's some lessons that are learned from this here. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Don't get high on your own supply. Write a letter, but never send it. But there's one main lesson I think that's taken away from this. And influential research in undergraduate math education is nebulous. Now, that's going to be the theme for the next 10, 15 minutes, well, 10 minutes or so of what I'm doing here. And nebulousness is going to be the theme of my talk for this panel. For those of you that are sort of maybe wondering about a working definition, just sort of the quality of not being clear, having no form, and of course, in a great sense of irony or twist of fate, that there's a bunch of different definitions. So even the definition of nebulous is a tad nebulous. So let's kind of get to it. I contend in this talk, and I've kind of already demonstrated that influential research in undergraduate math education is nebulous. In other words, it's vague or it's ill-defined. Now, before, and I can't see everybody in the room with the eyes rolling and the yawn, like no big deal, we get it. This is something that's nebulous. I want to throw in a little bit of a plot twist. This is not to talk about the nebulous nature of influential. This is not to talk about the nebulous nature of research. I contend that actually math education and who does it is more nebulous than ever. And adding to the mix, undergraduate math education and who does it is also more nebulous than ever. So how do you attack some explanation for this? Well, I'm going to take some liberties here and I'm going to use reductivity. Why not? So I'll show you what I mean by that. Pick all four of those terms in the title and put them together, and it's nebulous. Go ahead, pick any three of those four, put them together. For example, influential research in math education or influential undergraduate math education. Same outcome. Pick any two, pick any single one, no problem. We have the same problem. So what I decided to do is if this is going to get heavily critiqued, reductivity as it is, I'm going to embrace it. So influential for the moment is off the board. I want to talk to you about research in undergraduate math education, and I'm going to address it sort of sequentially in a weird way. Math education, undergraduate math education, and then research in undergraduate math education. So Michael Lewis has a current book right now that is called Who is Government? And I didn't understand the title for a really long time. Started reading the book a little bit and I went, oh, okay, I think I get the angle to it. And I'm going to boost from Michael Lewis's recent book and say, who is math education? So here's what the Field Institute talks about in their website, promoting things to the world. And they talk about mathematics education. They talk about all aspects of the teaching and learning of mathematics, mathematics education research, STEM education, and we have this multidisciplinary, international, etc. So it's a very nice definition for a modern day version of things. What was the Canadian Math Education Study Group talking about way back in 1977 when it formed? Well, we had mathematicians and math educators. And so this is sort of the space that I'm going to work in when we talk about who is mathematics education. And 1977, simpler times, mathematician, I understand, math educator, I understand. But then there was this weird moment that happened at the 43rd annual meeting of CMESG, which is held in 2019. And if you're trying to run the numbers really quickly, Professor Hodgson had a very lovely talk at CMESG at one point explaining the number of years relative to the date. But at this meeting, the then current and past presidents of CMESG had a disagreement about terms. And for me, in a weird twist of fate, it wasn't really about what a math educator was, it was over what a mathematician was. So in my head, I had these two understandings of mathematician, math educator. And so let's take a look at some working definitions if we try and explain who is math education. So my uncle is Uncle Bill. He's a retired mathematician from the University of New Brunswick, has proven some theorems, interwoven polygonal theorem, taught undergraduate calculus his entire career, and for him it was the most important thing that he did, and was a big fan of the sharp mechanical pencil 0.9, the yellow one, the famous one that you know. So Bill, mathematician. Egan, math educator, works at the University of Saskatchewan, has definitely proven nothing, teaches future math teachers, and also has teaching as the most important component of his career, and has graduated, in my opinion, to a little bit of a thicker lead. So you might see this, but I don't think you see this. I think you're going to see that Egan, who is a math educator, is not a mathematician. I would also note that I don't claim to be one, which is done by many people in the field of math education once they sort of gather some fame a little bit. You read about something online and all of a sudden they're a mathematician. I'm not really sure how that works, but it's something that I've seen a lot. Uncle Bill, on the other hand, is a mathematician. Is he a math educator? Well, this is sort of a bit of an unsolved mystery. So maybe this is what you see. All cars, convertibles, convertibles, cars. It's organized that way there for me at the moment in my head. So who is math education? Please take a look at the list of winners of recognizing innovation and excellence in math education. Who is math education? Now we have to add to the mix this notion of undergraduate math education. And for a long time, I didn't think anything of it. But then I started thinking about MathEd Classic, for lack of a better word. If you're a math educator, you have some journals that you're used to. There's particular conferences that you're going to. You may not say undergraduate, you might say tertiary. In the States, you work in a math department. In Canada, you're working in an education department. You dabble maybe in pure education. That's sort of like MathEd Classic. Now I'm starting to see new MathEd, and I see terms associated with individuals that I haven't seen before, applied math education researchers, different journals, different conferences, different organizations, STEM, different acronyms. We see SOTL. So I'm starting to see sort of some differences between math education and undergraduate research in math education. So there are no stupid questions, but I started thinking about this a little bit more. And you should note that future teachers are loving calling themselves educators. So when I talk to them, they don't think of themselves as math teachers, they're math educators. And then my head just starts spinning. So all those different ramifications of these sort of new and kind of classic versions of this. But no matter who is math education, a promise is a promise. So I'm going to talk to you about some influential research in undergraduate math education. One article. I'm going to talk to you about one article. I highly recommend that you read it. Here are some details about the article. So while I'm kind of going through it, maybe you can parse out who this is, and we'll have a slow reveal at the end. So I'm going to give you some cherry picking from it, and I'm actually going to even highlight some cherry picking from it, and I'm going to go quick so you read it, but here's a lovely statement. Research recommendations are simply advanced analytic claims that are kind of connected to the particular practice under investigation. There's another lovely comment with it that says the relationship between the environment and the improved student learning happened before. Like these are statements that don't necessarily need research. So this is the weird statement that comes with it. A lot of the recommendations that this individual found that is in the research are statements that could be made in the absence of the empirical research that is being conducted. Kind of threw my head for a loop a little bit with that one there. So again, very quickly through it, I think that you should read Education Research as Analytic Claims, the Case of Mathematics Education, which is published proudly in the Canadian Journal of Science, Math, and Technology Education. And Andy, if you don't mind, I know we started just 2 minutes late, so I'll just take a minute or two more. That's okay?
We have about 5 minutes and a few seconds.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And sorry to make you run up in front of everybody. Who is math education? I just started kind of making a list. And I'm not really sure that when you take into consideration pre-K, elementary, primary, secondary, graduate, undergraduate, tertiary, all the people that are conducting research in that area, I don't have an answer right now on who is undergraduate research in math education. I kind of have a picture of the individual that's involved in undergraduate research in math education, but I'm not able to label them the way that I'm able to label Uncle Bill and Egan. And the reason for this is because it's sort of nebulous at the moment. But there is a short way of kind of getting out of this by saying, like, oh, it doesn't really matter what we call something. I'm not sure that I'm there necessarily. I think labeling this might be something that is worth kind of attending to. So in our discussion, in our panel, this one article for me is applicable to anybody, especially those conducting undergraduate research in math education, because I think there are some influences from that area. But the one thing I want to draw your attention to is I'm sort of starting to see opportunities for division within a mathematics education community. So that's why my recommendation for this one particular article is there. Doesn't matter to me if you're an undergraduate student in my ECUR 318, that's something that can apply. If you are teaching calculus students by the thousands online, and perhaps trying to conduct some scholarship of teaching and learning research on the work that you're doing, that is an article that absolutely does apply. So building capacity in the scholarship of math education requires many perspectives. For those of you that know anything about the stuff that I've done, putting things in different perspectives ultimately places what we're looking at in a greater context. And I think that's something that's kind of very important right now. And just a quick nod, as Andy mentioned in the introductions, The division within the Canadian community is something that we don't necessarily need right now. So what do you take from 15 minutes where I give you one article where I say, who is mathematics education? Well, a little bit about the journal, the Canadian Journal of Science, Math and Technology Education. There's sort of the aims and scopes, and you can read about it before you submit, or if you have submitted, kind of give yourself a quick brief. But you can see in the last while, there has been the publication of many Canadian researchers who are publishing influential research in undergraduate mathematics education, who are publishing research in mathematics education. And that's something that's a nod to the editor-in-chief, Professor McDougall, who is at the helm of something that's trying to be part of STEM, but then also trying to be very focused on mathematics. And I think the journal kind of flies under the radar a little bit because we get stuck into STEM journals or technology education or science education, but we have a very important focus on math education. And so if you're a novice researcher and you're looking to mobilize your work, there's a famous phrase that said advice can never be given, only taken. So I'm not really supposed to say anything after that, but I would advise you to consider the Canadian Journal of Science, Math and Technology Education as a possible venue for your research in undergraduate or math education. And I thank you all for accommodating me while being in Tokyo at 4:30 in the morning in a small hotel room. And I think some hangers are hanging behind me and the lighting's probably horrible. Despite that, thanks for your time and effort.
Thank you very much, Dr. Egan Chernoff. And now we'll have our next presenter up.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks so much to the organizers for the invitation. It's been great to be here today. Yes, so my name is Elise Lockwood. I am a professor in math education in the math department at Oregon State. And I'm here in my capacity as co-editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Research in Undergrad Math Education. So I'll say IJRUM, sort of as the acronym. Well, thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. And just a little bit about myself. My research focuses on the teaching and learning of discrete mathematics to undergraduate students. So I really love combinatorics and helping students solve counting problems more successfully. So that's basically my whole career is about solving counting problems and helping students to do so. So and great talk, Egan, that was really awesome. And I'm looking forward to discuss it more at the end of this, at the end of the panel. So I want to focus a little bit on the journal. So there are lots of math education journals, but want to highlight this as potentially something that could be of interest to this community because of where it sits in particular with its focus on undergraduate math ed. So just a little bit about aims and scope. We really welcome articles that speak explicitly to issues related to the teaching and learning of post-secondary mathematics. So what we mean there is really any math beyond kind of high school. So that can be undergraduate. We use the term undergraduate, but it's any university, any kind of post-secondary level. And I'll say more about what's kind of in there. So practically, the journal contains original research reports sorry, this was supposed to animate, but maybe it's not, it's okay. We have original research reports. So by this, we mean your kind of typical empirical report. They're 10,000 words long. And then also, so that should have, literature review, theory, methods, and that type of thing. We also allow for, if you want to make some theoretical point, methodological kind of advances, you can also write sort of a long paper doing that. We have research commentaries, which are shorter, 5,000 word articles. If you feel that you want to make sort of a point that would contribute to the field more broadly. We have some book reviews. And we also welcome special issues. And so there are 7 published special issues that sort of center along a theme. And you can check those out. And we also welcome having people actually submit proposals for special issues if that's relevant to you. Okay, and then thematically, I want to talk a little bit about and give some examples of the type of things that we might publish here. So really researching on the teaching and learning of a variety of domains. So any kind of, again, post-secondary mathematical domain you can think of, college algebra, pre-calculus, linear algebra, combinatorics, real analysis, the teaching and learning of those topics are something that we would welcome. And I'm just highlighting a few papers here. These are what I consider to be potentially influential, but mostly to give you some ideas of the scope and types of work that we might see. So here's a paper by Kate Maheux, the Group Theory Concept Assessment, a tool for measuring conceptual understanding and introductory group theory. Right, so this is focused on something like the domain of group theory, so a pretty advanced mathematical topic, looking for measuring student thinking, and it's kind of this analytical tool, right? So that's one example of something that we might see. Here's a paper. I use inquiry-based learning in this course. It may say more about an instructor's beliefs than about their teaching. Right, so this has to do with, again, the teaching, so any kind of university level teaching and instruction and research on that would be a good fit for our journal. We also see research on graduate level mathematics teaching and learning, so it doesn't have to be undergraduate, as well as mathematicians' professional practice, right? So we've had a lot of conversation about sort of mathematicians so far today, and we value perspectives, and this is maybe some of what Sepida was talking about, say. So here's an example of a paper where we look at mathematicians' example-related activity when exploring and proving conjectures. So that's something that would be, again, appropriate for this journal. It's not about their teaching, it's not about their pedagogy, it's actually about what they're doing mathematically as they're exploring and proving conjectures, because we think there's something to be learned about, say, what that means for the practice of example-related use for students, right? So that type of paper would be great. Also, graduate teaching assistants and the instruction and preparation of teaching assistants is a topic that we cover. So graduate teaching assistants, perception of student difficulties and use in teaching is a recent article. So again, what is the GTAs, we call them, what's their experience as they teach, what's involved in the preparation of them to become instructors moving forward. So that's another type of example. We also see, which we've talked a lot about today as well, research on pre-service teachers and teacher preparation, if the connection to post-secondary education is clear. So that's kind of a caveat for a journal. We want research on pre-service teachers, but we do want to make it clear kind of how that relates to post-secondary education. So here's an example, The Road Not Taken, investigating affordances of infinitesimal calculus for enriching the repertoire of secondary math teachers. Right, so this was an interesting design. They actually paired secondary teachers with mathematicians and kind of talked about concepts and thought about how those teachers were reasoning about it. Another example by Orly Buckbinder and colleagues, mathematical knowledge for teaching proof, comparing secondary teachers, pre-service secondary teachers, and undergraduate majors. And so here, again, the point is we're looking at maybe a particular content area, mathematical knowledge for teaching proof. And we have undergrads represented, undergraduate majors, pre-service secondary teachers, also secondary teachers. So kind of a range of, say, populations, but the core of the issue has to do with, their mathematical knowledge for teaching this proof concept. So these are meant to be, examples of kinds of articles we see that relate to pre-service teacher preparation. And then much more. So I'll show some other examples that offer just a variety maybe of theoretical perspectives. But these are the types of work that we say, or that we would accept. I also wanted to mention anything, so two-year colleges. I was learning about the colleges in Quebec, the two-year colleges. Research in that space or community colleges or anything that also is relevant for us. Okay, I want to say a little bit now about just some trends in room and or in IDROOM. And I'm happy to say we're celebrating 10 years as a journal. So we started in 2015. We're like into our 11th year now. And I got fortunate in preparation for this talk because we actually, in this next issue coming out, we have a research commentary written by some experts in the field, Tommy Dreyfus, Ghislaine Goudot, Onam Kwan, and Chris Rasmussen, who actually went and read all 205 articles that have come out so far over the past 10 years. And they put together this commentary that kind of, gives a sense of where the journal has been and where it's going. So I just wanted, you'll get to read that when our issue comes out, but wanted to draw on some observations that they made. So everything I'm going to say in the next few slides, I want to give them credit for this. So we'll just note there's been growth in the journal. So this is the number of articles published. So started in 2015 with just maybe 15 articles a year. We've now up to kind of doubled that in 2024, and we're just moving from 3 to 4 issues. So there's definite growth, which is exciting. And then this is, I want the caveat that, I don't know what all we want to necessarily interpret from all of these. So I think we see some interesting sort of trends. And again, I think what the authors did was basically they coded essentially the articles that they read and tried to identify some trends and themes. So they found about, I guess, 112 papers that they would sort of identify as primarily about a mathematical topic. Right. And so you can kind of see the trend. The special issues are included in this. So there's been like a special issue on calculus. And so that could be why some of those numbers grow. But you can still kind of see a lot of focus on calculus. Proof has remained pretty constant. There's this a lot for advanced topics, like maybe something like group theory we would put in there. And really the point is, there are a good number of kind of mathematical areas represented, right? And we welcome kind of that variety. They also identified some what they would call focus areas. So again, kind of this open coding of the articles. And they just focused on these 4 that had foci with more than 20 papers. And so you can see an increased maybe focus on university teachers. And again, maybe teachers' practices, teachers' beliefs, active learning. There's been increasing work there. Digital technologies, again, maybe not surprising. And then the mathematics for non-specialists, I think, has to do with maybe mathematics for engineers, for biologists, a little bit more interdisciplinarity there. So we're seeing growth in those 4 areas. And again, just some maybe recent examples. Here's a paper, Forms of Structuring Space by Linear Algebra Students with Video Games and GeoGebra. So that would be sort of in that digital technologies. We're also seeing increasing work on maybe programming and computing in that space. And then this was, I think, a particularly influential piece that I think relates to active learning. This was a research commentary by Sandra Larson and Chris Rasmussen, Eye on the Prize, Inquiry Approaches in Undergraduate Mathematics. And I think this was a research commentary where they were trying to sort of look across some of the inquiry-oriented kind of push for more active learning, and just making a case for maybe some clear definitions on what we might mean by inquiry-oriented. And then just another comment on some of the theoretical representations. And there's also a variety of methodological perspectives too, but largely, right, a lot is still cognitive and epistemological focus. So that's, the majority of the journal, although not quite the majority, but most of the biggest piece of the pie, I guess, is still kind of cognitively based. But sociocultural and affect, sociopolitical. So we are welcoming, and I think very intentionally want a variety of perspectives kind of coming to the journal. And here's one, I think, pretty influential paper. And this is Adirja and Andrews Larson, who were kind of taking a take on, sorry, I'm gonna admit this person, on Rochelle Gutierrez is taking the sociopolitical turn in math education. So this is focusing on post-secondary and just making a case for maybe more work that focuses on the sociopolitical. And you can see a little bit of a growth there, or at least we have papers that sort of leverage that theoretical perspective. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to just point out, and again, maybe with the goal of saying, look, if I were to, my point in presenting these, and I'll talk through them briefly, is for a given topic like calculus or whatever you might pick, The journal really does welcome a variety of perspectives and sort of a variety of methodological approaches. And just there's a lot of ways to think about a topic and how we might study the teaching and learning of it broadly. So just for example, like at the top there, Rowley and Hardy, the evolution of students learning from calculus to analysis, how students solve analysis tasks that look like calculus tasks, right? So that's something that focuses on student learning kind of cognition, but at that upper end of calculus and its transition to maybe more advanced mathematics, right? Maybe in contrast, investigating the impact of active learning in large coordinated calculus courses, right? So you can imagine the types of questions they're looking at and asking are just going to be quite different when you have these large courses. Louis Sleva and colleagues, support for all, confronting racism and patriarchy to promote equitable learning opportunities through undergraduate calculus instruction. Right, so a very different take on kind of how that's looking. And then Olaf Veerman and colleagues, the limit notation at 3 educational levels in 3 countries. So this kind of highlights, right, the international nature of, and what this sort of facilitates. They can look across actual, international perspectives. And again, a very different take is from what you might see with looking at like some students, particularly notion of the concept of limit. I think I don't have time to go through maybe the same type of argument for like pre-service teacher preparation, but the whole point is, right, we welcome a variety of perspectives, and we really do encourage and value collaborators from different theoretical backgrounds, institutional backgrounds, international backgrounds. I just want to point out, and Tommy Dreyfus and colleagues kind of highlight this in their paper, there is ongoing need. There are some clear new directions. I think we would like more work on teaching and learning of more advanced mathematical topics, right? We get a lot of calculus and college algebra, but we'd love more advanced topics. I think there is this more attention toward non-math majors and sort of math as a service discipline. And relatedly, think interdisciplinary connections. So what's happening at the between math and CS, between math and physics, and we welcome more perspectives there. I also think we really would welcome in particular kind of methodological advances. I think we're thinking a lot about how can we, ask questions well, investigate ideas well. Are the methods that we have kind of serving us? Do we need to think out of the box? And then certainly I think AI and the rapidly changing technological landscape we're expecting to see more there, but I think it's something that really does need to be considered and studied. I'll conclude, and I'm almost out of time, just with a couple of comments here. So I think a great thing about our journal, and again, maybe for people in this room and at this workshop, this means a lot. We really do facilitate focused research on relevant issues in post-secondary math. And again, for somebody who, like I love studying the minutia of students' reasoning about a combinatorics problem, right? And for many journals, like that might just be too kind of niche, but it fits here, like there's a place for it here, right? And so if you have something that you're really passionate about and loving at sort of that post-secondary math level, we might be a really good fit for you, right? Whereas a broader journal just might not care enough about the math maybe. But you have to make sure then that the connection really does relate to issues in post-secondary math ed, right? So that's the biggest reason we sort of reject articles, is that they just kind of fall outside of scope of what we're doing here. I think for empirical studies, really you want to be grounded in literature, have a clear theoretical perspective, and articulate sound methods. And I'm also happy to talk more. I was thinking a lot about during Egan's talk about sort of, who is math education, who's a math education researcher, and I would be happy to talk more about that. Let me just say, and yes, I do apologize about my country to everybody here, but you can send issues related papers on DEI to our journal. We're not affiliated with the government. We're always in need of new reviewers. This is a good way that you can learn more about the journal, and so please do. It's a great system. You can email me and then I'll get you signed up as a reviewer. So if you want to review for the journal, please do send me an email. And then we have an upcoming special issue. I'll just put on the next slide about university teachers' practices, knowledge, and training. So here are the guest editors, and the abstract submission is at the end of May. And so that might be of interest to you, kind of this open call for a special issue. And I think that is all I have. Thank you.
was wonderful to see the breadth of MathEd research available, and we love Americans, we do. It's just interesting times. Can we have the next presenter up? Jean-Francois, Dr. Jean-Francois Maheux.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm Jean-Francois Maheux. Don't try to pronounce my name. That's okay. Just call me Jeff. It's fine. I came to talk to you a little bit about FLM, the Journal for the Learning of Mathematics, and I brought a few copies that I can hand around, and you can leave with them if you're one of the lucky ones who's going to get. I don't have enough for everybody. Sorry. And so I'm going to keep it short. Let's go. Okay, so what is FLM? FLM is a rather different journal because we don't publish research reports. It's really a journal for sharing ideas. Okay, I have to stay here. Okay. Hi. So it's really a journal for sharing ideas, and you have here what we have in the aim and scope. So it's a journal aimed to stimulate reflection on mathematics education at all levels. So it's not targeting a specific level at all, and it also touched to all different parts of the practice and theories around mathematics education. So again, there's no specific topic or kind of theory or whatever, because the general idea is to be productive in terms of sharing ideas, generating discussion, reacting, that sort of things. And so mathematics educator at all levels are welcome to read and contribute to the journal, but it's still a journal focusing on research. So it has to be research-based reflection, so to say, around the learning and teaching of mathematics, but also always keeping in mind that it is something that is complex. And for that reason, we like papers, articles that open mind instead of simply reporting findings. And this is a little bit where we are coming from. So when I was asked to share about what might be the most influential research, I also talked to the editor of the journal, and we agreed that it would be very difficult to answer that question. And so we simply asked Google to tell us what were the most cited papers in the last 5 years. And I think it's an interesting way to look at things and show to you the way that maybe this sort of papers can be interesting to the topic at hand. So these are the first 3 that came. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently those are the 5 more cited papers from the last 5 years. And the first one, Untangling the Web of Deficit Discourse in Mathematics Education. So you can see that there's an interesting concern for social issues. The second one, ways that relentless consistency and task variation contribute to teacher and students' mathematical learning. And this was from the monograph. It's the first time we had a monograph, so that doesn't happen a lot. And it's interesting to see it show up there. And the last one, opening a discussion on teaching proof and automated theorem provers. So again, going in a new direction, something rather different that you might connect with, and you can see the range, right? And if we go a little bit deeper on those papers, I think it's interesting just to look at them and think in terms of how it can be something relevant for the sort of can we get rid of that? It's kind of, if I click where, chat? Will go away? No. Okay, well, it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit annoying. That's all right. So here's the abstract. Despite advance toward equity, mathematics education continues to be entangled with deficit discourse. That's a little bit hard to read if I don't have the. Maybe no, it's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. It's okay. No problem. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, and here we analyze the webs of meaning that comprise deficit discourse, and it talks about also, whoops. Ah, fantastic. If only we can have the right slide. Okay, so which of these discourse are supported by seemingly neutral narratives about what counts as mathematics. And then we advance a framework that eliminates how deficit discourse are mutually reinforced across multiple layers of social organization. So it's a paper about presenting a framework to look into possibly, the effect of deficit discourse. It's not something that's going to be necessarily, more for primary education, secondary education, or post-secondary education, or whatever. It could eventually talk to everybody, even though they're going to draw on some data at a specific level, right? And so, for example, we could read this paper asking questions regarding, for example, how we look at prospective teachers in our own programs, the programs we take part on. And do we tend to see prospective teachers as not math ready? Is this something that we tend to do as math educators working with undergrads? Or do we see them as weak at math? Is this part of something that we do? Math ready is socially constructed and exclusionary category, right? Falsely neutral narratives about what counts as real mathematics. What do we consider to be real math? Those are questions that the paper invite us to ask ourselves about what we do, about what our programs do. Second point, deficit discourse individualized structural problems, turning systematic gaps into personal failures. So again, this is an invitation to think about the way that our programs work, about the way we treat our students. Is this something that we consider at the moment? Do we consider how the prior school experiences shape the mathematical availability, the mathematical opportunities that those students were giving, instead of just saying that they're not good enough at math? Do our programs also create those kinds of situations? And are some groups or individuals more targeted as being weak at math or not good enough? Do we have that as part of our programs or not? So these are kind of questions that could apply. The second paper, ways that relentless consistency and task variation contribute to teacher and students in mathematical learning. So here's the abstract. In this article, we provide the rationale for the principles and process of designing and implementing sequences of learning that use concept of task variation and learning trajectory to exemplify relentless consistency. And if we jump a little bit, and also encourage teachers, educators to adopt such orientation with practitioners with whom they work. An extract from one of the sequence is presented to exemplify our overall approach and to pose some implications for mathematics teacher education. So again, you can see that the paper is going to be about something specific, but also offer food for thought that could relate to other research or other context. And more, if we go more in depth in the paper, those are some sentence that I took from it. You can think with. Learning is most effective if students do not know initially how to proceed. I've not been told how to do so by the teacher and expected to make decisions and solution strategies by themselves. So again, is this something that is part of our programs or not? Food for thought. Planned sequence of learning, carefully varying tasks with sequences can emphasize what the central ideas are, what they are not, and prompt light bulb moments. So is this something that is part of how we prepare undergrads? Food for thought. Central aspect of relentless consistency is the culture of the classroom. What is the culture of the classroom in our programs? How do we build those cultures? Teacher educators should identify particular tasks and sequence that engage teachers or prospective teachers in experiencing the important mathematical ideas that underpin particular sequences and allow teachers to experience ways that the sequence represent a learning trajectory. So again, offering a way to look at what we do in teacher education or in undergrad maths to kind of try and improve it. Okay. So again, like I said, it's not a research report, it's an essay, it's a paper that brings an idea to reflect, to think about what we do. Last one, opening a discussion on teaching proof with automated theorem provers. So this is the abstract. The paper argues that there's a need for a new approach to teaching proof with newly available technology. Opening a discussion on digital proof assistant. The paper starts by exploring such proof assistant could play an important role in fostering the students' appreciation and understanding of proof. The need to develop explicit pedagogic strategies tailored to assist teachers in deploying such computer-based tools. So again, it's not a research report, it's really a reflection, a study on this topic that is being presented. It connected it a bit more to post-secondary teaching probably, but it's also written in the way that it could connect with lower level math. Again, a few quotes. There's a need for a new approach to teaching proof, one that capitalizes on newly available technologies. So again, we can ask, how do we teach proof to prospective teachers using technology? Do we teach proof using technologies? Why do we do it with technology or not? Good questions to ask. The correctness of a proof, once formalized, can be verified by machines to a level of certainty that mathematicians cannot achieve when working with informal proof. So again, this raised some interesting questions, I think. What is the image of proving practices that we present our teachers, the way that we talk to them about proof and make them learn proof and do proof? And even how much do we know about the actual work of mathematicians proving things right now, right? So that's another interesting question. The time has come to introduce digital proof assistant to the mathematics classroom. So if we buy that, how much are we ready to actually go for it and use those tools, right? So again, back to the journal, there was this compendium where a number of editors from different journals talked about what they were looking for in the different journal, and I took some points from that to let you know a little bit more again about FLM. So really, the idea is that FLM is not a journal for broadcasting research, right? It's open to articles that, yes, mathematics education researchers are writing, but also having in mind that we're publishing articles that we think mathematics education might want to read to enrich their thinking. And so the kind of papers that you have inside are essays, commentaries, narrative, dialogues, poems. There's even in the 100th issue here, right in the middle, graphic, sort of novel paper. So all kinds of things can come here because the idea is really to generate talk, discussion, ideas, share, react, right? But still always research paper in a way. It's very important to root yourself in literature, to contribute, that it's part of a study. It's not a teaching idea. It's not just something that, it's not an opinion. It is something that comes from research. These are contributing to research, right? And again, an interesting quote, with something German, intriguing and substantive to say something that provokes thought and bring a fresh point of view and in ways that take account for the readers, speaking plainly and putting their cards on the table. So really kind of a straightforward in a certain way. Did I have something else? Yeah, and again, I think this is my last slide because again, and this is coming from the very first issue of FLM back in 1981 when it was created by David Wheeler. A journal is a product or perhaps a byproduct of people talking to people. Like face-to-face talk, printed talks take many forms and serves many functions. It can entertain, inform, reassure, tell lies, beat about the bush, play on feelings, inflame, and do anything, the other things that people use words for. So having that in mind, this is a journal where you can do a lot of things with language. There's a lot of space. You don't have to write a research report. You can share ideas and get ideas. And this is also why I brought a few copies for you to walk away with. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
That was great. The creativity of submissions is fantastic. And now our last presenter.
Thank you. Okay, so in the short blurb that was sent to us, it was said that panelists will include editors of major education research journals that include the focus on undergraduate mathematics education, including teacher education. Can you hear me? Okay. Online, they cannot hear me. Oh. Okay, whatever. I will hold it. They will share examples on influential research. Online can hear me now? No response. Yes. Okay. Discuss the aims and scope of their respective journals and provide advice for novice researchers looking to mobilize their work. It is too much. I felt it was too much. And first of all, it is very unclear, and I want to focus on these two things. It is not moving. It is not moving. Will this move? Now this will work. Okay. Okay. So I will focus. Panelists will include editors. And I'm not an editor anymore. I'm a former editor of the journal. I'm a former editor of the Journal Mathematics Education. And I decided that I cannot focus on influential research because it was too much for me to work on. Back. Okay, so instead of focusing on influential research, I will focus on recent research because as my colleague, I asked Google what are most quoted papers and what are most read papers, and I really didn't like the choices that Google provided. So I decided I will make my choices. So I will focus on the recent research rather than influential research. So I will talk about the Journal of Mathematical Behavior that I served on this journal for 8 years, 4 years as associate editor, and the last 4 years as editor-in-chief, but I'm not there anymore. Anyway, the Journal of Mathematical Behavior, this is the blurb on the webpage, says it is an international double anonymized peer-reviewed journal concerned with learning and teaching of mathematics. Our fundamental goal is to publish research of the highest quality that expands understanding of how people build, return, communicate, apply, and comprehend mathematical ideas. So I will quote now from the interview with Dr. Keith Weber, who is current editor-in-chief of Journal of Mathematical Behavior. And when Keith was about to replace me and I told the colleague that Keith will do the job and Keith is better than me, this colleague replied that, yeah, Keith is better than everyone. So. Okay, so Keith Weber, and it is published on the first page of the journal if somebody is interested to learn more. The Journal of Mathematical Behavior has traditionally been a journal that publishes articles that provide detailed analysis of how people seriously engage with mathematics. And we interpret mathematical behavior broadly and so on. I will not read everything for you, but my love with this journal, Journal of Mathematical Behavior, started long time before I was associated with it as an associate editor. And it started with a task to, in a course, that a colleague and I gave to students. It was a course that included upper undergraduate level courses and some graduate courses. The course focused on problem solving among many other issues. And we asked people, we gave them a list of journals in mathematics education, and we asked them, go read whatever you want, find some mathematical interesting task in one of those journals and bring it to class to engage your colleagues. We gave them a list of 5 or 6 mathematics education journals that they were sent to explore, and 16 out of 18 students brought something from the Journal of Mathematical Behavior. So for me, it was a journal that publishes interesting mathematical tasks. And many years later, I was lucky and honored to be associated with this journal in some capacity. Okay, so because I was not able to focus on influential research and decided to focus on recent research. What research in mathematics education was published in the Journal of Mathematical Behavior in the past 2 years? Obviously, there was some focus on calculus and there was some focus on linear algebra, but I decided not to focus there. I decided to focus on what we can call cross-cutting themes. There was some studies on proof, some studies on the notion of inverse, and some studies, you should have corrected it. Now I see the mistake. And some studies that focus on the notion of sameness. So let's go on, start with proof. Proof is a very, not famous, but very current, very frequent topic in mathematics education research recently. And we know that students do not understand the notion of proof. We know that students make mistakes in proof. There are dozens of articles on proofs and students finding research in proof were published. So it is rather hard to find a particular focus, to say something that was not said before. And some people did find this focus. So this is the study that came recently, as you can see. No, I'm going back. Oh, I should have, okay, I thought it is circled. But if you look at the top, there is a date 2025. So very, very recent study. And overcoming impasses and proving processes, novice provers, productive actions when encountering stuck points. So we all know that students have difficulties, but here is sort of a new angle. What do they do with these difficulties? So this was a research question explored in this study. When novice provers encounter impasses during the proving process and actively navigate through them, what are some productive actions that help them successfully overcome those stuck points? So what the researcher did, students were asked to prove a mathematical statement in a clinical interview statement. I think it was done with prospective teachers, secondary school prospective teachers, which the task is relatively simple, but still people got stuck. And the research explored what do they do when they get stuck and what can help them. And the conclusion was that the ability to identify their stuck points and engage productively in overcoming those stuck points seems to be more important than just completing the task. Another recent study that was published, once again, you look at the date, it is from December 2024. It has very strange name, their lens for exploring which dimensions contribute to a justification of proofiness. You know that one of the authors shares the last name with me. It is not me. I didn't change my name. But anyway, in this study, the research question was what makes a written justification and proof and what dimension of proof students attend and why. But this idea of proofiness, what is the idea of proofiness? And they introduced this strange work and from a book and said we borrow this construct name and we use proofiness to refer to a person's comparative conception to the extent to which justification should be considered as a mathematical proof. So rather than for students to find mistakes in proof, students were shown different justifications, different proofs for the same claim. And it was students' language when they say, oh, this one is proofier, meaning they considered it to be better as a proof, but why? This was the topic of, this was the issue that the research focused. And one of the conclusions that they drew was that student responses indicated that they viewed the procedural justifications not as proofy as non-procedural ones. Okay, so I said I'll focus on 3 cross-cutting themes. The second one is sameness. So are these the same? Are these the same? Are these the same? So you're thinking about sameness, but I'm going to talk about sameness in mathematics. And the recent paper, once again, from 2024, called Snapshots of Sameness, Characterizations of Mathematical Sameness Across Student Groups. So what is sameness in mathematics? Before that, students, this is the research question, have students conceptualize sameness as a mathematical concept, and to what extent? How they describe mathematical sameness, and what experience do they highlight when they categorize sameness? These were the research questions. And once again, sameness in mathematics connected to the notion of the notion of equivalence. And we all know the reflexive, semantic, transitive, and examples include equality, congruence, isomorphism, and so on. So do students see some similarity across different topics in mathematics? So students were asked in this research, what does it mean to be the same in different contexts? How do you determine if 2 things are the same? And is sameness in this particular course for students in discrete mathematics course? It was, is sameness in discrete mathematics. For students in linear algebra, it was, is sameness in linear algebra is the same from sameness in other mathematics classes. And oops, once again, I wanted to go back. And you can guess that not many connections across different subjects were drawn, but what is interesting is saying no, is not saying not many connections, but saying what connections students do make and what experience helped them to make those connections across different contexts, and that's what the study investigated. And the third thing that I want to focus on is the topic of inverses. So, and there were 2 recent studies. Now we move into 2023. Another one, I think, was for 2024, is examining the concept of inverse. One article has to do with theory building, and another follow-up has to do with reasoning productively across algebraic context. And once again, as I said, many studies focus on particular content, particular mathematical content, students learning of linear algebra, students learning of combinatorics, students learning of calculus and analysis. I wanted to emphasize cross-cutting themes, and this is the third one. So do students develop coordinated notions of inverse? This article focused on different conceptions of inverse, and they exemplified 3 cross-content ways of reasoning that can support students' productive engagement with inverses in a variety of contexts. Inverse as undoing, inverse as manipulated interval, and inverse as a coordination. Oh, this is mine, I'm sorry, just don't answer. I thought whatever. Inverse as a manipulation and inverse as a coordination of the binary operations. And what was interesting that I would have known about the first one from my work with students. I would known about the last one from my studies of mathematics. I've never thought of inverse as manipulation of the element, but working through these different conceptions helps students to see some overarching idea of inverse. This was one of the tasks they used. And what I liked in their work is they used some very, very old research. Here, my name is on it. And you see because it is old, the logo of the the journal is different. By the way, we worked so much to find an appropriate logo for the journal. And after we finally agreed on it, it is not only in print. It is not in print anymore. So it is only on the website, you can see. Anyway, so this research studied with this question. This older research that I'm referring to started with this question: communication with student. F with exponent -1 stands for an inverse of function, and 5 with exponent -1 stands for the fraction 1/5 or 1/5. So is it the same symbol or what? So this students' teachers' responses to this was this old research that somehow influenced some other studies related to cross-cutting concepts of inverse. And this was supposed to be different. No, going back. Okay, I'm not good at it, but it was, the last thing was, what advice can I give? And my main advice is to follow your heart, but this line, read before you follow your heart. It was supposed to like jump and spiral to the slide. And because I'm not using my laptop, I don't know, something very wrong with this computer. So thank you very much.
That's great. So if I can invite all the presenters to come up to the front, or a novice researcher, say that they are, beginning their, pursuit in mathematics education research. What tips would you give when it comes to publishing and mobilizing the shared knowledge that they have with others? So what tips would you give for publishing? Oh, hi, Egan, nice to see you. And how to mobilize the knowledge and share it with everyone. So you're a novice researcher, what would you say? So Rina a little bit touched on it. Read, follow your heart. So if any of you or Egan.
Sure. Well, in the case of FLM, we're still a very small journal, and we're not running with a big publisher. This means that you can be extremely comfortable just to send us an email and pitch an idea, and we will get in touch with you. So if you just want to say, I'm working on something, I would like to write a paper for FLM about this and that. Do you think it's a good idea? And you can absolutely do that. You don't have to write your paper in full. We are very supportive because we are still relatively small in terms of how many papers we get every year, around, I don't know, maybe 400 or something like that. It's still pretty manageable, and we can have this very kind of human approach. You don't submit through an online website or whatever. You can just send that by email. You get into a conversation. So this could be a very good way. Of course, look a little bit at the journal before to get a feeling of this kind of stuff that we publish, but then pitch an idea, get a conversation started, and we're going to walk you through getting your paper out. Simply as that.
Oh, that is so nice, beautiful.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things if I may. Is it on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I agree with that. And I do think being willing to reach out to an editor or to email is also kind of fine. So if you have a question, or if there's, you have some details about scope or something, like, you should feel free to kind of reach out to somebody at the journal and don't treat them like you can't ever talk to them. And then one other piece I was going to say too is I think conferences are really huge. And so I think often, like, you start with a conference paper and maybe it's a little bit shorter, and it can be a great way to sort of get out and get to know people. You get feedback. And then it is a pretty common practice then to take what's starting as a 4 or 8 page conference paper and then build it out into a full journal article. And so a conference can be sort of certainly a way to mobilize your work, a way to get going, get some feedback on it, and then to, again, expand to a full journal. So those are a couple of pieces of advice I would say.
Love it. Conferences and events like this. Great. Awesome. Egan, do you have anything to say?
I would actually just say the knee-jerk reaction is to chop up a PhD dissertation into journal articles, but I think people are doing it too close to the time that they've published their PhD. So my suggestion would be to sit on it for a little bit. You might even not think it's as great as it is a few years on, and that gives you a new lens with which to say, oh, this is how this could turn into this article here. This is how this could become part of this article here. There's a want to strike iron while the fire is hot kind of thing, but I can sniff out a poorly chopped out piece of a PhD a mile away, and they're just not going well right now. So sit on it, try something maybe related, but then come back to it. And I think with an extended period of time, you might have a new lens on it and turn into something nice.
Awesome. Great.
Can I add
advice.
one other small, just
Sure.
random piece of advice? And
course.
maybe people disagree, so I'm curious, but I also, and I know this is maybe a financial burden, but if you have grant money or institutional support, I would try to publish more in open access than you might think. I never did as a young person, and because you see that price tag. So if you're going to publish in a big journal, it's often $1,000. I mean, quite a bit of money, hundreds or thousands of dollars, right? And so yeah, I just never published open access, but some institutions do have it. Sometimes that can be a productive use of your advisor's grant money or something. So I just want to put that out there as an idea that I never would have thought to do. And I think it would have helped my research, I don't know, in some way, but just something to think about.
Yeah, if I can make another suggestion, I bet you will agree with that. At FLM, and you do too, we publish commentaries. So another way to draw on your dissertation work, for example, without just taking a chapter and trying to turn that into an article, which might not work very well, finding a paper that you want to react to comment on based on your own research. This is an excellent way to get started with a journal, to go through the process, to bring in your ideas and connect with what is already in the journal and so on. So this could be a very easy way to get started. Pick something that you like in the journal and write a reaction to that based on your own research.
Love that. And thank you so much. I will pass the virtual mic to Amy to conclude.
Thank you so much, everyone. Again, our panelists, our audience, our morning speakers, everybody involved, the organizing team. This has been a great day. Thank you. That's enough for me. Have a good Friday night. We'll see you here tomorrow.